Warning, some viewers may find the content of this podcast disturbing or shocking. Please be advised. Evening all. Hello to anybody who is out there. Welcome along to G-Star Vault, the safe place for paranormal evidence. This is live podcast 013. I was brave and I'm not superstitious, so I went ahead with the episode 013 anyway, as 13, as we like to call it. I hope everybody's okay. I'm a bit sort of disheveled, to be honest with you, and a bit rushed. Literally less than 30 minutes ago, I was cooking a roast. About 5 minutes ago, I was still eating it. And if you could have smell-o-vision, this whole cabin smells of roast dinner now. So hope you guys have had a good weekend. Who have we got with us? So far, evening to Courtney. Yay for Sunday streams. Yes, I am here. I rushed pulling together this podcast simply because I've got some exciting news. So I just want to do a bit of a talk about the underground paradox. I was out last weekend. If you're from the UK, you'll know that we've been having pretty good, unseasonably good weather the last sort of couple of weeks. And last weekend I went out in the UGP machine, the bongo, my camper van, and I got really lucky. It was a beautiful day, fantastic location. I did a wild camp and I got some really good footage. It's a really good episode. I'm editing it at the moment. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it will be ready for next Sunday, if the plan goes according to plan. But yeah, I was doing this episode on a really interesting case of alien abduction on Dartmoor. And so, yeah, I was there while camping and I'm just enjoying editing the footage. I've got a couple of new toys recently, not when I was out filming this recent episode, but since. So I've got a new device to do my editing on. So I'm looking forward to being able to do the next Underground Paradox in HD. Fingers crossed. In 4K, I should say, not HD. That's old school. 4K. Sorry, I didn't mean to slap the microphone then. I hope that didn't come through as a big bang. Yeah, so that was really good, and I'm really enjoying editing that right now. And the reason why I say fingers crossed for next Sunday is because I've got quite a busy week coming up. I won't be here with G-Star Vault next Sunday because it is Easter Sunday, but I'm also excitedly going away on another filming excursion, another camp with the one and only Monty from the Vault, from this channel. He's coming away with me for a couple of nights of filming. We're going to an abandoned airfield in Cornwall, and we're going to be doing some filming around the airfield and around there's a big forest location right there, and obviously continuing to do the whole van life thing as well. And we'll film sort of staying out and camping in the bongo. So that should be really good. So I'm leaving to go and do that for 2 days at some point next week with or towards the Easter weekend. And then on the Sunday, Easter Sunday, I am partying with Maz and McBob from the Star Trek review show, also on this channel, The Vault. So yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend for me next weekend. So I won't be here with The Vault, and that is why I'm really hoping that I get this episode edited in time and out there for you guys by next Sunday, because you can have that in replace of this G-Star Vault. So I'll keep you all notified in our community thread. So make sure, as always, that you check our community thread. On that note, if you're watching live or if you're watching post live, please don't forget to subscribe, give this stream a like. If you would so, be kind and share. Sharing always is fantastic. But yeah, just give us some support. That'd be awesome. There's links in the description to the Underground Paradox if you want to go and subscribe there, and you want to check out that episode that I'm talking about that hopefully will be uploaded by Sunday. So yeah, it's really exciting at the moment. The other toy that I've got, which I forgot to mention, I was telling you about the device which I can edit on, which is great. But also I got myself a you all know recently that I got a DJI drone, and now I've got an Osmo Pocket 3 DJI device, which for going out on location filming is just going to be a game changer. It's got sort of motion tracking, all the sorts of things that are going to help hide the fact that I'm bad behind the camera. So that should be a really great addition to all the stuff that I'm doing on location and filming for the Underground Paradox. So please go and check out the link in the description and subscribe to that channel as well. So, but this evening we are talking about something that I alluded to a little while ago. I can't remember. I think it was all the way back when Monty guested, actually, and I think we were talking then about some conspiracies, and I mentioned that I had been sort of storing away quite a bit of stuff about 9/11, September 11th, 2001, and the big, catastrophe and awful incident that happened. So I basically I've been coming across bits and just researching little bits of stuff. And the reality is that this is obviously quite a sensitive subject. That's why I put the warning on at the beginning of the intro, and I'll play the warning again in just a moment. Yeah, it is a very graphic subject. Obviously, a lot of loss of life, not a nice subject. And for me, in this whole discussion that I'm going to talk about, I really have tried to sort of keep away from the conspiracy theory kind of, well, not the conspiracy theory angle, but just there's a lot of stuff out there that is really insulting and just so obviously false. Some of them I will allude to this evening. Some of them that have come up in the top 10 questions that I'm going to ask, where I've kind of then debunked even that question, because again, I've done a lot of fact finding around the stuff. And so a lot of what I'm going to feature tonight, the questions that I'm going to ask are really do validly deserve an answer. There's a lot of evidence to go and back up these things. So I'm not trying to do anything, what I wanted to avoid was being disrespectful to people that have still got relatives and family and were affected by, 9/11 and the incident that happened. I'm certainly sensitive to that. So before I just start talking that, I'm just going to play the warning again, just to make sure that I'm...
Warning. Some viewers may find the content of this podcast disturbing or shocking. Please be advised.
So there you go. Just one more warning. And just before I get cracked in, so thanks, Courtney. I think he liked, I think that was a comment based on all the stuff that I was talking about with the Underground Paradox, I'm sure. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. I think I don't want to say this. I don't want to vocalize it because sometimes then things end up going wrong. I guess I'm a little bit superstitious, but I feel that this is going to be one of the best videos that I've done on the Underground Paradox, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed getting out on that wild camp in the Bongo. Perfect weather conditions, perfect location. Yeah, I've had some mishaps along the way. There's some footage that I filmed with a drone that didn't end up saving, some footage that I filmed that the SD card that obviously it was on had become corrupt, and I've been told off by my other half because I don't format my SD cards enough. But yeah, I lost some footage that I was filming from certain angles in the camper van as well. But you know, overall, it was a fantastic journey, fantastic investigation, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. I wish I'd had a little bit of a trailer, but probably part way through the week I'll share a trailer both on the Underground Paradox and the Vault, so you can check that out. Awesome. Right, let's find where my just need to sort out my banners just to make sure that I've got all my questions ready to go. So I'm going to kind of do this in reverse order. As I said, I've got like 10 questions that I want us to ask in this discussion tonight. And if you are watching post live, please comment as we go along what your thoughts are on some of the stuff that I'm going to present. But before I get into my questions, I just want to cover some of the facts. And again, just out of respect of the incident that happened on September the 11th. So at the World Trade Center, which is given the shortening of WTC, the site in Lower Manhattan, 2,753 people were killed when hijacked American Airlines Flight 11 and the United Airlines Flight 175 were intentionally crashed into the North and South Towers, or as a result of the crashes. Of these who perished during the initial attacks and the subsequent collapse of the towers, 343 were New York City firefighters, 23 were New York City police officers, and 37 were officers at the Port Authority. The victims ranged in age from sadly 2 years old to 85 years old. Approximately 75 to 80% of the victims were men. At the Pentagon in Washington, 184 people were killed when hijacked American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the building. Near Shanksville in Pennsylvania, 40 passengers and crew members aboard United Airlines Flight 93 died when the plane crashed into a field. It was believed that the hijackers crashed the plane in that location rather than their unknown target after the passengers and the crew attempted to retake control of the flight deck. As of January the 18th, 2024, 1,650 of the 2,753 victims' remains have been positively identified, according to the Medical Examiner's Office. So those are some of the undeniable facts around the incident of 9/11. So my first question, I'm going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start at question 10, going down, excuse me, to question 1. And my first question is, was Silverstein aware of the attacks and part of a bigger plot? Now, some of you might already straight be going, well, who's Silverstein? And the person that I'm talking about is actually, and I've got a picture to share somewhere, if I can remember where my pictures are. There we go. So this is the gentleman, and his name is Larry Silverstein. In January 2001, Silverstein, via Silverstein Properties, made a $3.22 billion bid to lease purchase the World Trade Center. He was outbid by $30 million by Ronaldo Realty, with Boston Properties and Brookfield Properties also competing for the lease of the World Trade Centers. However, Fernando withdrew in March, giving Silverstein 14 days to negotiate a new bid. His negotiated bid was finalized on April 26, 2001, in partnership with Westfield America. So the bid was fully accepted on July 24, 2001, and it was the first time in the complex's 31-year history that it changed management. And consequently, if you can't work out the dates there, basically this gentleman took this 99-year lease out on the World Trade Centers 6 weeks before the incident. Now, the lease agreement applied to 1, 2, 4, and 5 World Trade Centers, and about 400. Altogether, it was 425,000 square feet of retail space. Now, when he bought it, Silverstein only put up 14 million, just 14 million of his own money to secure the deal. The agreement gave Silverstein the leasehold and the right and the obligation to rebuild the structures if they were destroyed. Okay, so going to come to some stuff in a minute, but basically, this gentleman, Larry Stevenson, bring him up again. He basically bought, put this bid in 6 weeks before the incident. He gets the rights to the building. One of the first things he does is takes out full insurance policies against terrorist attacks. Which in itself wasn't something that was in play with oh, I just realized there's a comment. I've still got the question up. Sorry, can start controlling my banners a little bit better. Yes, so Courtney, I was just sorry looking at comments there. Courtney just said no, definitely not, but absolutely profited from it. Yes, so he basically purchased them, then automatically and straight away took out this insurance policies to protect against terrorist attacks, which again hadn't been a situation. Now, again, you could look at it from a quite obvious logical point of view that this was 2001 that we're talking about, so there was already some elements of terrorist attacks going on in the world. So it was more a common thing. So maybe that's why in the past it didn't have that kind of insurance. But there's just this really big coincidence around a lot of the things that he did. Interestingly enough, so after the incident, it took Silverstein 5 years of wrangling with insurance brokers about getting the payout for the World Trade Center. I'm just trying to read ahead on my notes just to make sure that I'm not telling you something too in advance, but I think I'm okay. But actually, before I carry on with what I'm saying, you may be thinking that all of this just sounds like a coincidence then with Larry Silverstein. However, let's go on to question number 9. So question number 9, why wasn't Larry at breakfast? So as I said, it was Larry Silverstein who had purchased the World Trade Centers. Now, in the sort of 6 weeks that, not just the 6 weeks from purchasing, but the year before, because he was still very heavily involved in, business deals and business events that went on at the World Trade Center. So one of the things that Larry Silverstein had been doing for, I think, about at least a year before the incident, is he had been going to breakfast at one of the restaurants on the top floor. I think it's called the World Trade Core Restaurant or something like that. And he went there every morning for breakfast, except for on 9/11. He didn't go there. And you can look at this on Wikipedia. And one of the things that it says on Wikipedia is that Larry Silverstein stated to all the media and people that were investigating afterwards that the reason he wasn't in the building at the time of the incident was because his wife insisted that he attend a medical appointment at that time when he would usually be having breakfast in the World Trade Center. Don't know. Again, just another coincidence. But if you think that, Larry Silverstein is innocent and not in anything dark or sinister, just think about this. He'd spent, as I said earlier, 5 years wrangling with the insurance companies. Hi, Wookie. Good to see you. Thanks for popping along. I don't know if you got that email that you were asking for. I shared it with the guys on the Star Trek chat group. So it's on there. But if you go on to the Underground Paradox channel, it's on there anyway. The link to the email, if you wanted to still reach out to me. I know you were asking for my email. I'll come back to some comments in a minute. I'll just finish what I was saying about Larry Silverstein. But the thing is that he spent 5 years with the insurance companies and eventually got a payout of, I think it was 4.45 million. Hold on. What is going on with my notes? There we go. Yeah, so he had to wrangle with 58 different insurance companies. He was awarded a payout of 4.57 billion. But the thing that everybody should know about Larry Silverstein is that his original claim for the payout that he was trying to wrangle with the insurers was for 7.7 billion pounds. So if that doesn't give you a significant look into the personality, I mean, some might say, well, he's just a good businessman, just an astute businessman. But I think there's been good at business, and then there's been what I would presume or deem as being greedy. So yeah, let me know what you think in comments. But why put to be honest with you, a lot of that money was tied up. The bid was basically just a sort of payment scheme that was going to be agreed, right? He had only put 14 million of his own money. So yeah, but again, just playing devil's advocate, he did basically. He was responsible for them rebuilding the World Trade Center replacement building that we have now, and he's been part of that process, and he's still going. He's still with us. I think he's 93 years old, if I'm correct, but still kicking in there. Yeah, it was all about how the value that he was saying now it would have cost in 2001 to replace the buildings after 9/11. Materials and stuff had gone up in price, etc. But I don't know. So before I go on to my next question, which is going to be question number 8, just see what a couple of comments I've been saying in chat. So Aikida already tried to blow up one of the towers in 93, so it wasn't as though it wasn't known it could be a target. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that point. Yeah, so that could definitely make an explanation for why he went full force with the terrorist insurance and protection. Another one from Courtney, but he was liable for the rebuilding as per lease agreement, no? And therefore the insurance payout would have to account for that. Yep, exactly as I mentioned. But again, there is a lot of, deservedly dubious about the fact that it wasn't going to cost 7.7 billion. So he was definitely trying to cash in. And I'm sorry, but if you're trying to cash in on an incident of this ilk, of this type, I don't know. That reveals a certain aspect, again, to somebody's personality. Wookie says, I have mixed feelings on 9/11. To me, it stinks of conspiracy, but experts say otherwise. Yeah, I forgot to say at the top of the show, Wookie, thank you for reminding me of that. The reason why I sort of found myself falling into interest in this one, and sort of, as I say, keeping a catalogue over the last year or so of things that I was coming across, is because I sort of liken it very much to the JFK assassination. There's just some things that just screamingly don't stand up to scrutiny, and there's definite sort of reports and commissions that have been done where some of the facts that we're provided with are like, if it was the opposite way around, you'd definitely be skeptical and scrutinizing those facts, because they sort of seem to pull them out of anywhere. I mean, the whole thing, we'll get to it later, but well, it's actually not one of my questions, and it's one of the ones that I've chosen to ignore this evening. But it's still, there's a lot of debate about how the buildings could have been destroyed in the first place, because they were protected against air flight collisions. And there's a whole bunch of scientific and engineering people who say that it was all the separate fires and the wildfires that played their part and made it explainable, and they provide some really good evidence. But then there's equally other engineers and people from the scientific community that argue to that fact and present other explanations of why the destruction of the actual towers itself couldn't have been as a result of the airplane collisions. So anyway, all very interesting, but it's because of that likening, that similarity between JFK assassination, that I just kind of sort of seemed to, over the last year, formulate a little bit more of an interest in going down the rabbit hole on this one. Okay, right, let's get to question number 8, I believe we were on. Yes, and that is, why were all the passengers on board's flights 77 and 93 incinerated, but 4 terrorist passports were reclaimed in perfect condition? And that was a big part in them being able to provide evidence that this was driven by Al Qaeda and the terrorists. So what's interesting is the FBI investigation stated that 900 body parts were discovered, approximately weighing 600 pounds. And this is over a big space. But for the best part, like, all the bodies were kind of destroyed. Now, if you go online, you can see these pictures that are partially burnt, and they're suggested to be passports. But actually, when you look at it closely, and I've got some where I've gone onto the US government websites to sort of look into the evidence that they attach to certain reports. And the evidence, I'll just show the picture, it'll be easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. So this is what's supposed to be a partially burnt passport of one of the known terrorists, but it's actually a partially burnt copy of the US visa recovered from Flight 93 crash site in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. So this was a part of the flight that crashed into the field, right? But it's not necessarily the passport. Other pictures that appear on these, and again, I forgot to put the links in the description, but I will put the links in the description. I can't remember the name of I think I wrote it down somewhere. The government, it was, no, that's not it. Yeah, I'll put the links in the description, but it was a US government library website. But this is just showing one of the visas of what, and they were issued in Germany. So there's no guarantee that they would have been carrying these documents with them at the time of the flights. Other documents that appear on this website, again, are, and this is all stuff that's submitted to prove that they were the terrorists, but this is an visa application, so it's not even, and again, you would have already submitted the application, you wouldn't be carrying that with you during the flight. This is one of the tickets that they fill in for immigration. So quite dubious, because there's obviously a lot of people that question the fact, as I said, question number 6 is, or question number 8, sorry, why were basically all the passengers incinerated, which explains that the heat was so incredible, but yet it was reported that 4 terrorist passports were reclaimed and in perfect condition. That in itself is a question that poses a little bit of However, it leads nicely on to question number 7, and that is, why haven't we seen the pictures of the terrorists? Excuse me, sorry, getting over a bit of a cold, but why haven't we seen the pictures of the terrorist passports? What we have, I have just shown you, and the best extent of pictures out there are the ones that that one here I just shared with you. So, and that question really is my own, because I've kind of tried to research it, and I've tried to trawl through, as I said, the US government library's website. I've gone into the 9/11 Commission report. And that's the best that we get. Anyway, before I jump on to question 6, let's go back to some comments, see what people are saying. Just check the estimated cost of the rebuilding effort was 25 billion, 3.8 for One World Trade alone. Yes, I had that in my notes somewhere. Yeah, that's one of the other reasons why they built one instead of many. Again, to save on costs. The YouTube docu-movies Loose Change has played a big role in sculpting my views about all of this. Well, I have to check that out. I haven't, I might have seen it and just don't remember because obviously I go through a lot. But yeah. Courtney says, yes, the passport thing is 100% fishy. Yeah, it is. Because it's a bit of a, you sort of end up going full circle on it, because the statement is that they recovered for perfectly passports, right? I mean, maybe I've been looking in the wrong places, and if somebody can direct me towards somewhere that will disprove what I'm saying, I'm happy to hear that. But I have tried to do my research, and I cannot find, for the love of God, these pictures other than the one that I've shared, and that isn't actually a full sort of, as I said, it is a visa, and there's another one there that I showed a picture of that looks exactly the same. So anyway, but it's a bit of a crazy one. Just got one more comment. The crash site of Flight 77 looked arguably suspect and staged. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of suspect things that we've still got to get through. But what was my question number 6? Now, this is the one that, so why was CNN reporters already in place to capture the 9/11 attacks? Because again, we're considering that this was maybe a staged or a planned incident, that there were more than just the terrorists involved in, and even if they were terrorists, so that's what we're considering. So on that matter, there's a lot of people, and there's these conspiracy questions go around. Why was the CNN reporters already in place to capture the 9/11 attacks? Here is what I've looked into, and I kind of got something that I can sort of partially debunk or disprove this one. So on a lot of social media, they claim that CNN reporters and cameras were already in craft and helicopters and filming the tragedy. The reality is, if you look into and fact check, that there were some ground filmmakers who were working for CNN who were on the ground filming a short documentary about a New York firefighter when the attacks happened. So that is a sort of arguable reason why they would have been right there. There wasn't actually anybody in, and again, this is the other part of the fact check, there wasn't actually any cameras coming from helicopters right at the beginning of the incident. A lot of the footage that we saw at the time and after the incident was first of all shot from the ground. So again, I don't know if you guys have looked into that as well and have seen that yourself, but yeah. But here's the other thing that I then sort of almost second guess my own disproving of this fact, and that is that we all know that if you're out filming, if you're going to go live and back to the studio, it's a whole different setup that you're looking for and that you're going to be using. You're going to need other equipment to get your signal back to the studio. So the report is that apparently they were out, filming the short documentary. So it wouldn't have been that they were doing it live. That's what I think I read. Anyway, when I say I think I read that, I mean I think that's what they were implying, because it said a short documentary. So unless they've just used bad terminology. But let me know in comments what you think of that one. If you've read anything, heard anything, that would be good. Please share. If I remember rightly, when they published all the photos of all the terrorists involved, it turned out something like 6 of them were alive and not terrorists at all. Yeah, there was a lot of, they explained that by getting the names wrong. or there was some sort of element of press or some of the people that were working on the commission report that apparently got the names wrong because they got muddled up with the Muslim names. So yeah, you're exactly right. And thank you for bringing that up, Courtney, because that's not one of my questions, but certainly a worthwhile one. If we're looking into all the evidence. Okay, going on to question number 5. Why did the majority of the George W. Bush administration sign a document in 1997? Some of those administration were people including Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Paul Wolfowitz, that outlined that a national catastrophe similar to Pearl Harbor was needed to persuade American voters to support higher defense spending and the Iraq War. So I kind of looked into this one kind of quite a lot and fact checked it. This is the report that we're talking about. So this was written in 1997 after a meeting of, I think altogether it was like 25 different politicians. As I said, most of them were on the administration of George W. Bush. Key notable names were Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Paul Wolfowitz. But this document was written, as I said, in 1997, and it sort of outlines what they feel that would need to be done to reestablish or creating tomorrow's dominant force. So, and there's a section of it, which that is what the picture is, which is called Rebuilding America's Defenses. The section in this document titled Creating Tomorrow's Dominant Force became the subject of considerable controversy. Further, the process of transformation, this was one of the famous quotes that sits in this section of Rebuilding America's Defenses. And that famous quote is, "Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic or catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor." So just to paraphrase, what this document is outlining is that they feel that there's a need for like this significant catastrophic event like Pearl Harbor to engage the US people to be more open to, you know, spending on defense budgets and the Iraq War. And yeah, it's just, I've kind of skim read a lot of the document. I'm just going to check that this isn't, no, that's something else that we're going to talk about in just a moment. But yeah, you know, I would highly, you can easily go and look at the full document. I think it's about 24 pages long. I skim read over some of it, but I mean, it's scary. It is just scary. The temperament of it as a document and what it wants to achieve is just, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. But bearing in mind, it was written 4 years before 9/11. But what's interesting is that, you know, if you were going to do something like that and going to plan something like 9/11 and that it was manufactured, it's going to take you a few years to plan and execute it. So yeah, I think that's why it's significant. So just going back to comments. Oh no, that was one that I've already shared. Yeah, it was so they could also institute the Patriot Act, which was already pre-written and ready to go. Yeah, good man, Courtney, know your stuff. But yeah, I would urge you, if you, I think for me, I sit more now after this last year and looking into and trying to fact check a lot of this stuff. Because funny enough, I mentioned a name just then, Donald Rumsfeld. There's a big conspiracy theory about 9/11 that goes around on social media that kind of suggests Sorry, I've just realized that my camera seems to be really, really dark. And I don't know what's going on there. Just checking some settings. Excuse me. Just bear with me one moment. Isn't that strange? Just let me know in comments if you think I look a little bit too dark or if it looks all right, but maybe I'm just seeing it wrong. I am wearing these, my new, I'm not going to go on about it again, but these are new glasses that have got like a permanent tint. So still getting used to them. So maybe that's what the issue is. But anyway, it just sort of seemed to go all of a suddenly really dark. Anyway, what I was talking about, Donald, what's his name? Rumsfeld, that's it. So if you go on social media, there's a lot of stuff on there. There's a big conspiracy about the fact that he announced the day before 9/11 that the US government had lost track of some ridiculous amount of transactions that amounted to 3.2 trillion or something. Anyway, I've been fact checked that. And, that's an example of a debunked conspiracy, because actually that conference and that speech that he gave was actually a year before 9/11, still just, quite close, but certainly not what the conspiracy, suggest. So again, there is plenty out there that you just have to take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt. But going back to what I was saying, I think I do sit more on the fence that something untoward. It wasn't as plain and as simple as, these terrorists hijacked these planes and flew them into the buildings and the towers collapsed. No, it's not that simple. I think there's too much evidence that leans the other way out there. So my biggest issue with this being an inside job is the sheer scale of it and the amount of manpower. A lot of people feel that way about JFK assassination as well, and certainly did at the time. Video and new glasses looking good. Thanks, Courtney. Not Courtney, sorry, Wookie. Just going back to Wookie's comment there about it being too big. I think there's a mix of some truth there, and I think there's also a mix of an underbelly sort of planning. Even when you think, and again, this isn't one of my questions, but I'm just going a bit off script. But even if you think about the fact that these terrorists boarded these particular flights from different airports, where they got through security with knives, weapons, various other, things to be able to hijack the planes. And if we go according to the narrative, now you can understand maybe security being a bit lackadaisical at one airport, but the reality of it being at a numerous amount of airports, that, and again, is just one of those mini questions which you have to go, So I'm not saying that there wasn't some fuel. Maybe we're looking at a situation where, the terrorists at the time, Al Qaeda, whoever they were, actually felt that it was of their design and it was of their making, but they were able to slip through the net because it was all, encouraged and controlled by other people that had an agenda. So again, there could be a part of reality in some of these, in some of the incidents that surround 9/11, and some of it that really does feed into these and justify some of the questions that we want answers for. So going back to our questions, I'm going to bring up to, we're almost nearing the end now. Question number 4. Why was there unusual stock market trading of American Airlines AMR and the United Airlines UAL in the months before 9/11? So this one took me a long time to look into, because again, all of these I have spent some time trying to fact check, or at least find the fact that there is other sources and credible documents, reports to back up some of what is being said here. There are things in some of the questions that I posed this evening that go to answer and argue for the side of justifying an answer to that question, but there's still evidence out there that leaves questions still posed that need answering. Anyway, getting back to this one about the stock market, it was crazy how much time I spent reading into this, but let me just share. There's this document, which again is out there online. This one, it's so I'm presuming it was the US government that got this person to look into this. But anyway, there's a document out there written by Alan M. Peteshman, who is from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And he is an expert on stock market analysis, business analysis. That it's a whole wheel. That's what he does. And there's this long paper, and I wanted to check because the title, I don't think I can zoom the picture, but the title is Unusual Option Market Activity and the Terrorist Attacks of September the 11th, 2001. And again, this is the full report. I think is about 12 pages long. It's a report that Alan did where he completely spent a long time looking into all of the activity that was going on with these two companies, these two airlines on the stock market, other things that was going on the stock market. Now, after you go through this report, like I did, you start to think that he provides some really good evidence as to showing stock market trends and how certain trends can happen in a way anyway that would make it easy for somebody to imply that there was something untoward going on, but it's just a natural trend of the market. And so I was really glad that I was reading this report. However, I got to the end of the report, and this is how this guy from the University of Illinois, Alan M. Peteshman, this is how he summarizes his 12-page report and his study into it. And it says, consequently, the paper concludes that there is evidence of unusual option market activity in the days leading up to September the 11th that is consistent with investors trading on advanced knowledge of the attacks. So this is an expert in the field that's, again, I will hopefully, I forgot to do it where I was rushing since literally I only started prep for this podcast on Friday night. I forgot to put the links in. I'll get the links in. You can go and read the report yourself. It's a really thorough report of stock market trading and just trending and showing how the stock market, first of all, explaining how it works, what it is that we're looking at, and then talking about years of trends beforehand to just use as comparisons. But it's a good study. But the conclusion is that there was a clear sign that they had some advanced knowledge of the 9/11 attacks in their investment choices. And basically, again, in a nutshell, what it was is that when the incident happened, the value of their shares was sort of at an all-time high or something. So it was, even though people would have been like, oh, we want to get away from this disaster, that they wouldn't run away because their investment was, they were too locked in. But again, I'm not an expert on finances. So going back to some comments, Courtney says, but surely Wookiee, if Al-Qaeda could pull this off from Afghanistan, then surely the CIA could also. Yeah, again, very, very good point there, Courtney. Yeah, keep your comments coming, guys. And if you are here with us watching, please do give the stream a like. I've even forgot to do that myself, so I've just done it. But if you guys can also pop in a thumbs up, that would be awesome. Right, let's go. We are now on to question 3. And as we get into the last 2 questions, I've got some videos to share. So question 3, why were the news stations broadcasting the collapse of the towers before they fell? And again, this is a very similar thing to some of the information and evidence that's being compiled around the JFK assassination. And it was more probably relevant for the JFK assassination because at that time in the 60s, news didn't travel around the world and the globe the way that it does now. Yes, there was, things where they could definitely send, telegrams and overseas messages quite easily, but it still meant that there was a bit of it's not as fast and instantaneous as it is today. But with the JFK assassination, they've got evidence that there was papers producing articles about it, which in their time frame would have been before the actual incident happened. So yeah, interesting. But here's an example picture. This was a newscaster that was doing a live broadcast as the incident was happening, but the buildings hadn't fell yet. But she is talking about how one of the buildings collapsed. It's out there online for you. You can go and see. But in the background, the towers still haven't collapsed. They're there. So there is, some evidence out there to back this one up. But again, there was a statement that they released that they just said it was the journalist getting her words muddled up, and that she didn't mean that they collapsed, but that they mean that they'd been, struck. But I don't know how you mix those two kind of definitions of action up. But yeah, that's an interesting question that I think still demands an answer, and there is evidence out there to back it up. Right, so question number 2, we're almost at question number 1. Why are New York officials like the chief of police starting to come forward to share their concerns of lies and mistrust around September the 11th? And I've got one said example of this. There is a lot more out there, of course, but I'm just saying that I've got one example. Just watch this quick video, guys.
9/11 was a false flag.
First 10 years, I did not anything other than the official narrative. Then, after being shown a close-up video of building number 7 coming down, and that got me going, because it's obvious to me that building 7 was a controlled demolition, because the building collapses from the bottom down. The trade centers were unique in that they were designed to withstand the impact of a jet. From what I understand, the outer skeleton of the building, the outer columns was like a fishnet, and you had these inner core columns which were substantial, thick steel beams to withstand 4 or 5 times what the loads were. The engineers always over-design a building. No steel frame building has ever collapsed. And if you could visualize cast iron stoves stacked one on top of each other. The stoves up at the top, yes, there's fire and they've been damaged, but the stoves on the bottom, they haven't been damaged.
Okay.
So the structure underneath all of that is intact. So it's impossible for a building to collapse near free fall speed and increase
without a controlled demolition.
I do apologize about the fact that don't think that the sound was out of sync with the picture. That's my fault. When I sourced it, it was all in sync. Something's happened from where I've transferred it from one device to another. It's become corrupted, and that's why the audio wasn't in sync. I hope you guys didn't think that makes it look a little bit, when I watched it, that's all perfectly in sync. But yeah, it's interesting, some of the points that were being raised there. And we'll come back to some of the points that they discuss in that video in just a moment. But keep letting me know in comments what your thoughts are, because again, it's not really in one of my questions, but there's a lot of people that have come forward and said that they were interviewed for the 9/11 Commission report, but their interviews are not included. And in their interviews, and these are mixtures of members of public, but also firefighters and police officers, he was saying that they were hearing loud explosions from under the underground area underneath the World Trade Center before any of the planes struck the buildings. And all of this was omitted or not included in the 9/11 Commission report. So very similar to the Warren Commission report with the JFK assassination, where again, people have come forward to say that they were interviewed, they had information that they were happy and did share at the time, but it's not appeared in the official reports because it would probably raise too many questions. Before we go to our very last question, just some more comments. Was the reporter ever interviewed about this? Yeah, that's how the explanation came about. That she said she just got her words muddled up, and she meant to say that the buildings had been struck, but instead she said the buildings just collapsed. This part that really interests me. Yes, I think Wiki's probably referring to the structural stuff, and I think that then times my question number one that I believe is probably the biggest subject that demands an answer when it comes to the incident of 9/11, and that is, why did the towers not collapse according to expected physics? So there's a lot of work. Again, I've got another video to share on this one. Let's just watch this first, but I'm probably sure it's not going to be any new information for you guys, but just to refresh ourselves.
Is what we should have seen when the top section of the towers collapsed onto the lower one. The upper and lower sections should have mutually destroyed each other until all the energy is dissipated and the system comes to a rest. Alternatively, as shown in this experiment with two towers made of snow, the top section could have fallen off to the side after the initial collapse. What could not have happened is this.
A little tiny chunk of the building can't possibly fall and crush the entire structure below it.
This is such a simple, fundamental concept that architects and engineers were astonished in seeing it totally ignored by NIST.
This is high school physics, and our whole society is being led to believe that these fundamental laws of physics, hard science, don't apply anymore.
So yeah, it's really if you go to that clip that I had just a minute ago with the police officer, actually let me see if I can share it in another way so that I can just share just share that part then. But you see one of the smaller towers, I can't remember if it was Tower 5. Oh, what? Browser's having trouble showing your video. This can happen. Let's just try that again. Won't allow me to load it for some reason.
9/11 was a false flag.
First 10 years, I did not anything other than the official narrative. Then, after being shown a video, a close-up video of building number 7 coming down, and that got me going, because it's obvious to me that building 7 was a controlled demolition because the building.
And again, there's a lot of other physics to ask around the situation, because the two larger buildings were hit by planes, but that one wasn't. So but they were saying that it fell because of the impact or the disturbance from the other buildings collapsing. But I'm sorry, there's a lot of physics stuff that doesn't add up. And when you look at the collapse of the Twin Towers on the 9/11 incident, they look like a demolition. I know I'm not a demolition expert, but I'm sure all of us can agree, seen plenty of them out there, and that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like a building coming apart or falling apart as a result of being hit and impacted by a plane. Let me know what you think in comments, but I think that's probably the biggest imposing thing that does not add up, and the answers that have thus been provided, because again, there's some of the other explanations that I was talking about earlier from engineers and scientists that say it's because of the wildfires that have broken out in different areas of the building that allowed it to happen, and allowed these wildfires to burn through steel, which apparently requires such a temperature to burn through steel. And this is why there's very few steel building collapses unless it is as a result of planned demolition. So yeah, it's a big question that needs an answer. So let me know what your thoughts are in comments, and if I've opened your mind to possibly thinking at it from a different angle or generating some interest to go back to look into the subject, please do again let me know in comments. Good evening to you, Mickey. Welcome along. I'm just almost about to wrap up and say goodnight, but great that you were able to come along. Please give me a like before we shut down the stream. But just to recap on what I was saying at the beginning of the show, so I'm excited about finishing up this editing of my next Underground Paradox episode, where I was out on Dartmoor again in the Bongo camper van, doing an overnight wild camp, filming that and investigating and talking about this alien abduction that happened and was reported and took place on Dartmoor some years ago. And so it's a really interesting case. So that should hopefully be ready by the weekend. I won't be back here next Sunday for G-Star Vault because of it being Easter Sunday and because I'm going to be necking a few myself on that evening and having a fun evening with Mazamet Bob from the Star Trek Review Show. But yeah, you can check out those guys. I think they're back next Wednesday. They've started the Deep Space Nine review on the Star Trek Review Show, so join them on Wednesday. But I'll keep you updated. Look out for a midweek trailer of the Underground Paradox episode that I'm currently working on. And then I'm out this week again filming with Monty on location in Cornwall. So that's going to be really interesting. I've got some new toys and gadgets. So yeah, hopefully you can all check that out. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining me this evening. Enjoy the rest of what is left of your weekend, and I hope you have a great week ahead of you. And yeah, thank you for your support. And I'll see you next time here on G-Star Vault.